if we would like to begin recording, I will begin.
Go for it.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2016 Cheerleading Coaches Briefing. Thank you very much for being able to join us this evening and coaching our amazing athletes. With us this evening on the phone is Natalia Steffen. If you haven't had the pleasure of meeting her, she is the new Regional Sports Director and will also be our sports lead for cheerleading. Of course, myself, your cheerleading venue director. Russell Lyons is also on the lines with us. He is our head rules official. And Mike Sarnowski, our Vice President of Program with Special Olympics Maryland. Our agenda for this evening, you'll see we'll talk about the qualifiers, events, rules, coaches certification, and some usual administrative things that need to be done. First, let's talk about qualifying for the state competition. It's important that everyone meets all of the training and registration requirements and deadlines. Our mandatory qualifier is May 14th at Urbana High School. It is being hosted again this year by Frederick County, which we thank very much. All teams must compete at the qualifier to be at the Summer Games. There are no exceptions, as this is the only qualifier for the 2016 Summer Games. All teams must be there, including your unified partners. In the event there is a reason a particular athlete would not be able to attend, please understand that you must send a written request to the SOMD headquarters requesting this exemption, and it must be made by your area director in writing. I do not grant these. These have to go to the state office. For registering, each county will need to submit a separate team roster for each of your teams by April 21st to myself at the email reflected, as well as Natalia, the Regional Sports Director, and her email is included as well. Please ensure that you have all of your athletes, unified partners, coaches, assistant coaches, etc., on the form, and that all athletes and unified partners competing must have a current medical on site. And what that means, coaches, is please make sure you have a copy of all of your medicals with you at the cheerleading competition as well as the qualifier. When you arrive at the qualifier, please be prepared to bring 2 copies of your competition music with you on a CD that are labeled with your county, your team name, and the division. One of those CDs will not be returned to you. It will be kept, and there are no music changes will be accepted after the qualifier. We will be utilizing the system of the gym to play the music, and you will need to have a coach or a volunteer that will be signaling the start of your music. Again, we're strongly encouraging teams to compete in additional competitions if we could get another county to host one. That is something we really want to try to do, if at all possible. We will now go into the events that we'll be offering. We will be offering individual skills, and there will be traditional and unified team competition as well. You will note that we have added 2 additional divisions, hip-hop and pop. We will now go over rules and reminders. First, we will go over rule changes. Special Olympics Maryland cheerleading competition and the SOMD rules and guidelines are going to govern our cheerleading competition at the games. The only changes to the rules this year, as you will see highlighted in black gold, we will be also using the USASF rules for the tiny, mini, and youth division for the pom and hip hop. Nothing else has changed regarding the rules. This year, events and divisions offered as of March 2016 include, you will see 2 event groups. Athletes will be able to compete in 2 events this year. One from event group 1, which is your individual skills, your beginner, intermediate, advanced, and elite divisions, and 1 from the POM division or hip hop division, not both POM and hip hop. So it will be 1 from group 1 and 1 from group 2. As I was just stating, athletes may compete in a total of 2 events, of which 1 will be from selection group event 1 and 1 from the selection group 2. Just by way of example is you may register an athlete in an intermediate division and 1 from the POM division. All practice sessions during the day of competition must be supervised by a coach and held only in the designated locations specified. Athletes are prohibited from practicing skills on concrete, asphalt, and other hard, uncovered surfaces, as well as anything that may be wet, even, and obstructed. Unfortunately, there were a few incidences in a prior qualifier competition where teams were found practicing outside. This is not allowed. It must only be in the practice area that is designated during the competition and qualifier. Coaches must require proficiency before skill progression. I know that we like to have our athletes do as much as possible, and I'm for that as well, but please consider your athlete's skills with regard to the proper division that you're placing them in. Regarding jewelry, reminder that it is prohibited during practice sessions and competitions for individual skills, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and elite. With the addition of hip hop and POM, jewelry as part of the uniform division is allowed. You will see here the acceptable jewelry that is allowed, such as small post-stud earrings, chokers without dangling pendants, and hair accessories. Jewelry such as necklaces, hoop and dangling earrings, and piercing in any other area of the body other than the ear is prohibited, and it will result in a 5-point deduction per occurrence. Prohibited jewelry must be removed and may not be taped over other than as it has always been, except for medical bracelets, and I believe an athlete or 2 may actually have a medical necklace. Please make sure that this is taped firmly to the athlete's body. Decisions on prohibited jewelry at the competition will be made at the sole discretion of the competition director or his or her designee, meaning your competition judges. As a reminder, proper spotting techniques are always mandatory, and you must have a minimum of 2 spotters provided by the squad when you're performing a gymnastic cheer, a partner stunt and lift in the hip hop and POM divisions, such as an assistant coach or trainer. I will add that this individual needs to be a Class A volunteer. There are no partner stunt inversions, and no perpendicular inversions are allowed. Regarding choreography, music, and uniforms, It's extremely important that all facets of your routine, including your choreography, your music selection, is suitable for family and viewing and listening. Routine music and uniforms for all squad types must be appropriate for the age of the participants performing the routine. When standing at attention, a reminder your uniform must cover the midriff. Routines must be appropriate for family viewing. If there is any vulgar or suggestive movement, such as the hip thrusting, inappropriate touching, flapping position, etc., words, uniform, or music will result in a 10-point deduction per violation. Removing improper language or words from a song and replacing it with a sound effect or other words constitutes inappropriateness, and deductions will be made accordingly.
Anna, if I could just pause for a moment, just to make sure folks know, because it is the text is a little bit small on the screen. We will be sending out, Natalia will send out these slides along with the link to the recording for anyone who's not able to join us tonight. So you will get these electronically in the next day or so. Thanks.
And I believe that electronic communication will also include the full updated rules. Routine choreography must also be age appropriate and entertaining for your audiences. Again, anything vulgar or suggestive is going to result in deductions. Repeated violations may result in a disqualification for the current and future competitions. Decisions will be made at the sole discretion of the competition director and or his or her designees, such as your judges, the head rules officials, etc. All squad members must have white athletic, like i.e. a tennis shoe with non-marking soles for all divisions except hip hop and pom. It is suggested that your athletic shoes are like in style, that non-marking shoes are required when competing in the hip hop and pom divisions. No bare feet, socks only, or footed tights are accepted. Shoes with heels or wheels are not allowed. Regarding poms, as a reminder, they may be used in the individual skills and the beginner divisions. Poms must be used 80% in the pom division. You may use signs in the intermediate, advanced, and elite divisions for cheer only. Handheld props may be used in your hip-hop and pom divisions only. Standing props such as chairs, stools, and ladders are prohibited. All tumbling skills must remain in contact with the performing surface with the exception of the elite division, which may complete a round-off and back handspring. Scoring. The divisioning for hip-hop and pom will be determined based on the evaluation scores of the judges at the sanctioned qualifier for the state competition. Just going over the hip-hop division, your squad size is limited to a minimum of 5 and up to 25 athletes. There's a brief description of what a hip-hop routine can incorporate, any street-style movement. You'll see a list of different items, that are limited to such as these, but they're not limited to popping, locking, gliding, etc. With an emphasis on execution, style, creativity, body isolation, and control, uniformity, and music interpretation. Please be mindful of the time requirements for this routine. You will have a minimum of 1 minute and 45 seconds to a maximum of no more of 2 minutes and 30 seconds to demonstrate your routine. Timing of the music in this division will start with the music, and the timing will end with the last beat of the music. In this division, the coaches may place their athletes in
Anna, let me cut you off real quick.
Absolutely, Russell.
I just want to make sure, I want to reiterate that point, and everyone hears that because it's different than cheer. The dance division timing will start on the music, not on the first movement or word or anything. It is on the first beat of music. Just wanted to reiterate that. That's all I got.
Thank you. As I was saying, you may place your athletes in their proper position on the floor, but you may not be on the floor once the performance begins. In this division, you will also be able to give your athletes verbal and physical cues from the sidelines, but you must be out of the judge's view. Just for clarification, when you are in front of the mat, please ensure that you are on the side and not positioning yourselves directly in front of the judges' tables. Executed by individuals within the squad performance, tumbling and aerial street style skills. Tumbling as a skill is allowed, but it's not required. If you do tumble, you have the following limitations. Introverted skills, non-airborne skills are allowed. Refer to tumbling. So you have to have contact with the mat. So a cartwheel, a handstand, a round-off is considered to beginning to having contact with the mat. Tumbling skills with hip over head rotation skills, non-airborne skills are allowed and are limited to one hip over head rotation skill. You can't do an aerial cartwheel. You have to have contact with the mat. Please make sure that you are not doing simultaneous tumbling over or under another athlete. That includes hip over head rotation. This is extremely important for the safety of our athletes. Drop to the knee, the thigh, the back, the shoulder, the seat, or front, meaning their chest, etc., onto the performance surfaces are not allowed unless the athlete first bears weight on their hands or feet. You may not land in a push-up position onto the performance surface from a jump in which the legs come in front of the body and then swing behind. Hip overhead rotation skills with hand support are not allowed while holding props in your supporting hand. You may also execute group or pair within a squad performance from tumbling. Lifts and partnering are allowed, but again, they're not required. If you do choose to do lifts and partnering, the executing athlete must maintain contact with the supporting athlete, and that athlete must remain in direct contact with the performance surface. At least one supporting athlete must maintain contact with the executing athlete through the entire skill. Your partner stunts are limited to 2 people high for safety reasons. You are required to have proper spotting techniques with a minimum of 2 spotters must be provided by the squad when performing partner stunts, again, such as an assistant coach or trainer, which is a Class A volunteer. There are no hip overhead rotation skills allowed. No inversions are allowed. If you are performing an unassisted dismount to the performance surface, an executing athlete may jump, they may leap, or push off the supporting athlete, provided that the highest point of this release skill does not elevate the executing athlete above the chest level. Not the shoulder level, the chest level. The executing athlete may not pass through a prone or an introverted position after the release. No tosses are allowed. The POM division has the same minimum and maximum squad members of 5 to a maximum of 25. A POM routine and important characteristics such as strong POM technique, meaning clean, precise, and sharp motions. Synchronization, visual effects may be incorporated, such as palm passes, jumps, leaps, and turns. You must use the palms 80% of the routine. These same time minimum and maximums apply to this division as well as 1 minute 45 seconds and 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Again, as Russell had pointed out, this timing begins with the first beat of the music and the last beat of the music. Again, you may place your athletes on the floor and give them physical and verbal cues. Regarding tumbling, it is the same as the hip-hop division. Non-airborne skills are not allowed. Tumbling skills with hip over rotation, non-airborne skills are allowed and are limited to the one hip overhead rotation skill. You cannot have simultaneous tumbling over or under another athlete. Again, the stressing of drops to the knees, sides, and back, shoulders, etc. This is not allowed unless the athlete first bears the weight on the hands or feet first. You may not land in a push-up position onto the performance surface, and hip over head rotation skills and support are not allowed with holding props and proms in the supporting hands. The same rules will apply for executed by groups or pairs within a squad performance. Again, lifts and partnering are allowed, but they're not required. Your executing athlete must maintain contact with your supporting athlete. Your supporting athlete has to remain in contact with the executing athlete and the surface. Partner stunts, again, are limited to 2 high. Proper spotting techniques are mandatory. No hip overhead rotation skills are allowed. No partner inversions are allowed. Regarding your unassisted dismounts to the performance surface, again, the executing athlete may jump, leap, or push off the supporting athlete. You may not execute above the chest level, nor may you pass through the prone or inverted positions after the release. And no tosses are allowed. General rules of competition reminders. Please refer to your specific divisions of minimum and maximum numbers of squats. Coaches are not allowed on the floor during the performance of the routine. The rules will be enforced for all divisions. Spotters are permitted on the floor but cannot coach the squad. Coaches may place their athletes in their proper position on the floor, but again, you may not be on the floor, and you may give physical and verbal cues. Individuals insisting in the placement or moving of an athlete's wheelchair or walker during the competition must be registered with SOND. They must be a Class A volunteer. Once the athlete is placed, the assistant must stand with their hands at their sides and cannot relay any verbal or physical cues. You are there for safety of the athlete. Individuals assisting as a permanent spotter for an athlete also must be registered as a Class A volunteer. During the competition, you are to stand with your hands at your sides and you cannot relay any verbal or physical cues. Intervening to protect the athlete will not result in scoring deductions. This was put into place, I believe, 2 years ago, Russell, if I am incorrect. Just for clarification, you're there for the safety of the athlete. If they are pitching face forward, you are there to prevent that, and that will not result in a scoring deduction.
Correct.
Thank you. There will be an overall official violation sheet and a separate judge calculating that deduction. The total deductions or violations will be subtracted from the total judges' technique scores to establish the squad's final score. In the event of a tie, all 5 judges' sheets will be used. The lowest and the highest scores will be included in the calculation to establish the squad's final score. As a reminder, basket tosses are prohibited. Your elite division, as a reminder, squads in this division must be associated with an all-star gym. This is a facility that focuses on the health, wellness, gymnastics, and cheerleading. They train year-round and are committed to the additional practice needed to prepare for competition at this level. As a reminder, the division will follow the USASF rules for the special needs competitive division. The unified division. Typically, when forming a unified sports squad in cheerleading, the number of special Olympics athletes and unified partners are roughly equal. However, athletes must equal to or exceed the number of non-disabled partners, unified partners. Squads that have an odd number of members must have at least one more Special Olympic athlete than unified partner participating at all times. As an example, a 5-member team will consist of 3 Special Olympics athletes to 2 unified partners. I would like to stress where it says the point that you must have at least one more special athlete than unified partner. In the event that a Special Olympics athlete is unable to compete and your numbers are now uneven where you have more unified partners, you must remove one unified partner to remain within the division requirements. Sportsmanship. Each team will be judged continually throughout the competition, not just when you're on the mat. In other words, a team which is not performing may still have points deducted for unsportsmanlike conduct. Please remember to treat others with respect. Should you be bringing signs, make sure they create a positive spirit about your team and the competition. Here are some resources. These are our cheerleading guide, which will be forwarded with the slide deck. Also, some websites is the MySOMD site, which is available through the SOMD website. You see the website address there. If you haven't registered for the MySOMD website, I highly recommend that you do. There's a wealth of information there to include calendars and various materials for coaches. Also, online training via ASEP. These online courses can fulfill your sport-specific requirements for certification, and you see a list of them. I will defer to Mike very quickly regarding what SOMD contributed towards the cost of these courses.
Sure. Thank you, Anna. Yeah, Special Olympics Maryland will subsidize the cost of the course up to $20. In some cases, your local area will cover part or all of the remaining costs, depending upon the cost of the course. To get reimbursement, you must send both a copy of the costs that you spent. You'll get an email when you go to ASEP and save that and forward it, as well as proof that you've completed the course. When you complete the course, you'll get a notification from them that says that you've completed the course. We're not going to reimburse people who start a course and don't finish it. But we're very happy to do so for folks here. And then, as I think we'll see in another slide, there's a no-cost webinar training option that Anna and Russell and Natalia and some others are putting together.
Thank you. I am now going to turn the presentation over to Natalia. who will be talking about the requirements regarding registration forms and procedures. Natalia, would you like me to click through for you?
Anna, real quick before you go to that, could you clarify the webinar that you're actually going to be running for coach certification?
I think that's covered on one of the slides coming up, Pam.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Anna, could you make me the presenter?
Sure. I don't know how to do that.
I'll take care of that.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Mike. Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome.
We could stumble through it and entertain everyone else who's watching, but there you go. Okay. We
right.
see your screen. Just blow the PowerPoint up. Perfect. I'm going to.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thanks. For those who don't know me, like Anna said, my name is Natalia Steffen. I'm the new Regional Sports Director for Special Olympics Maryland, and I'm the new Sport Lead for Cheerleading. Just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. The links to this preseason recording, along with the copies of the handouts and any other information that we go over in the webinar, will be sent out on Friday. So just keep that in mind. And it will also be posted on my FOMD as well. First thing I'm going to go over is our policy. I know that majority of you, maybe everybody already knows our policy on this, but I'm just going to reemphasize the point again. No athlete or volunteer may participate in any manner in Special Olympics Maryland programs without a valid and current medical form or volunteer application. There's no exception to this rule. If you have to make an athlete sit during the first practice because they don't have their forms turned in or their medical form has expired, then that's just what you're going to have to do. You cannot allow any athlete who does not have a valid medical participate in your program. All right, so now we are at the Summer Games registration deadlines, typical standard deadlines that we have usually had. The first one I'm going to talk about is the training registration deadline. This is April 21st. This is the date in which you need to have everybody who is participating in your program registered into GMS. There's somebody in your county or area who's designated as your GMS person, and they're responsible for getting rosters into the system. Plan ahead and talk to that person. Make sure you know when they want to have that roster into them so they can meet the deadline. If you don't know who that person is, contact your area director and find out as soon as possible, just so you can start communicating with them and finding out when they need the information by. Anyone who is not registered by this date, by April 21st, anyone who's registered after this deadline will not be eligible to participate in summer games. You can definitely add the athlete to your program. They can participate in practice or local competitions, but they will not be able to compete in summer games. The next date is the last date to submit missing forms to Special Olympics Maryland, and that deadline is May 2nd. We realize our deadlines may be difficult for some people to meet because of scheduling conflicts regarding completing and turning in medical forms or volunteer applications. So we established this date for those people who needed a little extra time to get the last remaining parts of their applications into us beyond the training registration deadline. So May 2nd is the date that those papers need to be at Special Olympics Maryland headquarters. Please do not mail, email, or fax these papers to us. There's someone in your county or area who is designated to handle this. We have a secure portal that we use, and that designated person in your county has access to it and knows the process in submitting those papers to us. Again, if you do not know who that person is in your county, please contact your area director to find out who that person is. All paperwork, volunteer applications, medical forms need to be valid through summer games. It needs to be valid at the beginning of the season all the way through the state tournament. If volunteer applications or medical forms are going to expire during the season, before summer games, you need to complete new forms, and those papers need to be turned into us by this deadline. If we do not get that paperwork, those individuals will not be eligible to participate in summer games. Along with the volunteer and medical forms, this deadline also applies to the head coach certification. Most of you already know about the head coach certification. I will talk about it briefly in a couple minutes, but you have to have your certification into us by this deadline. The next, the final one I'm going to talk about is the competition registration deadline, and that is May 23rd.
Natalia,
Yes.
before you go forward, I think you skipped over the concussion certification.
Oh, yes.
I know we'll talk about that in more detail later, but since that is new this year.
Yes, thanks, Mike. Yep. So along with the head coach certification, the concussion training is also due by May 2nd as well. We'll talk about that in just a couple minutes as well, but that is also due. Last date for missing forms, May 2nd. So next deadline is the competition registration deadline, and that's May 23rd. This is the date in which all your individuals who are eligible to compete at summer games, all those who turned in their paperwork on time, the paperwork is valid, everything is good to go for them, they need to have all their events entered into GMS. So again, talk to your GMS manager in your area so they can work with you getting that information and meet this deadline. This is very important. Any athlete or unified partner that does not have an event will be deleted from summer games. So it's extremely important that you get this information into us. The last date that you see on the slide is just for aquatics and athletics, so we're going to skip over that. As I briefly discussed with the deadline, please make sure all paperwork for all athletes, unified partners, and volunteers have been submitted before they begin their involvement with Special Olympics Maryland. Please work with your area leadership in advance to determine the status of your team regarding having the correct paperwork turned in and making sure that they're all valid for the entire season. So concussion certification, this is a requirement set by Special Olympics International and Special Olympics North America. All coaches, not just head coaches, but all coaches must complete a concussion training prior to the start of the season. Prior, and then you have to have everything turned into us by May 2nd. The requirements you'll see here on the screen: complete one of two approved courses, the CDC Heads Up in Youth Sports or the NFHS Concussion in Sports. Both courses are offered online and they're free. They're about 30, 45 minutes, so not bad at all, and it's valid for 3 years. Qualifying for the state tournament, key points here, just making sure that all paperwork is turned in, volunteer applications, medical forms, concussion training, and head coach certification, everything is turned in, everything is valid. And make sure that you also compete at the required qualifiers. So if you see here for cheerleading, and as Anna mentioned before, May 14th, cheerleading, that's the cheerleading required qualifier at Urbana High School.
Excuse me, Natalia.
Yeah, can you go back a page real fast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That has under cheerleading and softball an additional bullet point of compete at a minimum of one additional qualifier. We do not require that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's just compete at the specific event, May 14th. Yeah, no, that's, yeah, a minimum of one additional. No, that's just the required one for cheerleading.
Right, yeah, sorry, that's our bad. That's strictly for softball.
No problem.
Okay, these slides I'm just going to briefly go
I'm
through.
sorry, one comment on that, actually, I'm sorry, before we go forward. That said, that's the minimum requirement. We strongly encourage everybody, all the teams, to get as much competition, whether it's within Special Olympics or outside Special Olympics. Let's not just go for the minimum, get as many items of flair, as you will, and as many competitions in as possible. So just because there's only one that's required, look for as many opportunities to do competition or competition experiences as possible.
Yes, and that being said, also if counties are interested in hosting qualifiers, please contact me, and we can see what we can do. We definitely encourage counties to host qualifiers, as many qualifiers as we can, so our athletes have all that experience. Okay, reference slides. I'm just going to briefly touch on these. Like I mentioned before, these slides are going to be sent out on Friday. So I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly. Athletes, as I mentioned before, athletes need to have valid and current medical forms turned into us. They are valid for 3 years, and they need to include all 3 pages, the necessary information such as information regarding disability and diagnosis, and must have all required signatures and dates. This is just a standard form for the athlete medical. Volunteers need to have everything turned into us as well. It's valid for 3 years and must include all 3 pages, as well as all signatures and dates. Here is the volunteer application. This is the 4th page if the volunteer is a minor. This is the first report, accident incident report. If anything happens at a practice or a qualifier, this is what you would fill out. Head coach certification. Most of you already know the longstanding policy from Special Olympics International, and states that all coaches need to be certified. Special Olympics Maryland just started rolling this out last year, and right now we are only saying that head coaches need to be certified. All head coaches need to have their certification into us by May 2nd, valid for 3 years. Along with the slides, on Friday I will also be sending out a schedule of learning opportunities, some trainings, coaches trainings that could count towards this certification. Coaches with previous Special Olympic sports certifications in their specific sport, in order to renew, you must complete 1 general or 1 sport-specific learning opportunity. Coaches with no previous sports, Special Olympic sports certifications must complete coaching Special Olympics athletes or principles of coaching, and they also must complete 1 sport-specific session. Like I said, right now this is only applying to head coaches, but we plan in the near future to roll this out to all coaches. And as you can see there, plan is to start after 2016 Summer Games. So just keep that in mind. Right now, this is what we have is currently scheduled coaches trainings, April 7th, cheerleading coaches training that'll include more information on POM and hip hop. You can see here at the bottom, if you would like to host a training, you're more than welcome to. Make sure that you have the physical space, people who would be interested, and then contact your regional sports directors, and we can help you with these, finding someone who will do the training, the clinician, materials, and any kind of advertising, recruiting information that you would need as well. Just contact your regional sports directors, and we can definitely help you and assist you in trying to put this training on.
Natalya, if I interrupt you.
Yep.
Pam, to answer your question regarding the additional training that I will be offering, as you can see, it will be a webinar. This webinar will go over all rules and policies and procedures for the divisions, to include the new hip hop and dance. It will also have references to the requirements for head coaches, volunteers, athletes, etc. And will also include some suggestive drills, items, and things like that.
Perfect.
if the coaches attend this webinar, it will satisfy their sport-specific training for a 3-year period.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Here is a menu, if you will, of what ASEP offers for their online courses. Right, we included all the sports here, but there are some cheerleading, as you can see, cheerleading or coaching cheerleading principles, coaching youth cheerleading. There are definitely some great opportunities here with ASEP, and I highly recommend that you guys look into them. What is an approved course? Here's a list of what would be examples that we would include. Again, like I said, this is going to go out on Friday. I just want to make sure that we're going to have enough time to answer everyone's questions at the end of this webinar. So I'm going to go through that, and then what is an approved course or development experience. As you can see there's some other examples: principles of coaching, online live, unified sports course, first aid course, a special Olympics Maryland hosted designated courses on coaching athletes with disabilities. If you have a course in mind that you would like to know if we would approve, just let us know. Pre-approved learning development experience targeted at coaching principles and coaching sciences, working with individuals with disabilities. If you have a question, just contact your regional sports director, and they will be able to help you determine whether or not this would be an approved course. All right. If you have any questions related to 2016 Summer Games or cheerleading, you can contact me or your regional sports directors here. If you have questions after this webinar later this week, just contact your regional sports director, and we'll be able to help you out. That being said, there's enough time now to go through if anyone has any questions. I know we kind of threw a lot at you tonight with the 2 events and all the deadlines, so I'm going to open up the phone right now. If anyone has a question, just go ahead.
Actually, before we have questions, I just wanted to make one comment. First, thank you to all the coaches for everything you have done. I know many of you are year-round. And for whether you started your program already this season or you're about to, thank you for everything you've done and you will do. And then secondly, I just want to give hat off to Anna, Russell, and the rest of their development team for adding 2 new events to the sport. I remember Anna sitting back a few years ago and talking about how we wanted to look at expanding and adding additional events and additional competition opportunities, and I'm absolutely thrilled that we're moving down that road already with 2 brand new events and able to have it so that athletes can be in the more traditional events as well as these. So this is really exciting, and again, hats off to Anna and the team she leads to make this happen. So that said, back to any questions.
I did have one question. This is Pam from Montgomery. Given the fact that the POM and the hip hop are actually events at the cheer venue, will there also be divisions, or will there literally just be the entry by athletes into a squad that would?
Hey, Pam, it's Russell.
Yeah.
We're not going to division dance yet, so we're just going to offer, think of it as in divisioning as just hip-hop and just POM. Those are
okay, until there's sort of a critical mass to be able to do that.
Yes, and there's also, you can look at it also as traditional hip-hop and traditional POM, or unified hip-hop and unified POM. You can do that also.
Okay, so there won't be really an ability divisioning.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah. That said, actually, just to qualify on that, if we are marvelously successful and have more than 8 traditional hip-hop or more than 8 traditional POM, or the same for unified, because there's a maximum number of 8 teams allowed in a division, we would work out some type of an ability. We don't expect that while we'd be thrilled to have that challenge, we don't expect that, but I did want to at least put that out there, that if we are in that kind of a situation, we can't have more than 8 teams in a division.
And we would be able to judge that from the qualifier, and
Exactly.
that's where we'd be able to base everything off of from that.
Exactly. Right. Again, would be a great challenge to have.
Says you. Any other questions?
I guess not. Anna, do you want to close? Okay. Natalia, do you want to close then?
Anna? Yeah, Anna? Did you go away?
No, I'm sorry. I'm still here. I had my phone on mute because I didn't want to be in the way of anyone that may have had a question. I again thank you for all of your devotion to the program and your athletes. I look forward to seeing you all at the qualifier, and I wish you all a very happy holiday season that's coming.